Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. As per the usual, I am Cabal, Cabal. Greetings and salutations, and welcome back. As you can see, we are right back again at our unboxing table, and get ready to set up another deck to unbox. So this one is a 4-color elemental deck. I had a fancy name for it, but I don't remember what the hell I came up with it, so we'll figure it out as I post this. So if you're enjoying the video, please give it a like, and if you're enjoying the content, please subscribe to the channel, because we got a lot more unboxings and a lot more other stuff. We even got a new fat pack in that we will be unboxing. Maybe not tonight, but eventually we will. So without further ado, let's get back into it. Now this is a straight multicolored elemental deck, and let's see how it comes out. Next up we have, first up we have a Sturdy Hatchling, 4-drop, 6/6, 3 colorless, green or blue. Elemental. Sturdy Hatchling hatching comes into play with 4 -1/-1 counters on it. Pay a blue or green, Sturdy gains Shroud until end of turn. Whenever you play a green spell, remove a 1/1 counter from the Hatchling. Whenever you play a blue spell, remove a 1/1 counter from the Hatchling. So essentially, the more things you do, the more counters removed, to the point where you get a big 6/6 beastie out there. Next up, we have the Supreme Explanar, Explanar. I don't know how to. I'm gonna just butcher the hell out of that. But it's a 7-drop, 10/10 elemental, 6 colorless, 1 blue. Flying champion and elemental. When this creature comes into play, sacrifice it unless you remove another elemental you control from the game. With this leaves play, the other card returns to play. So essentially, you're creating a body double that allows it to be there because it's a fucking 10-drop for 7. It's a 10/10 for 7. So next up, we have Primal Plasma, 4-drop. Questionable attack and defense, and here's why. 3 colorless, 1 blue. As Primal Plasma comes into play, it becomes your choice of a 3/3 creature, a 2/2 creature with flying, or a 1/6 creature with defender. Lots of flexibility with that guy. Next up, we have Living Inferno, 8-drop, 8/5, 6 colorless, 2 red. Tap, Living Inferno deals damage equal to its power divided as you choose among any number of target creatures. Each of those creatures deals damage equal to its power to Living Inferno. So essentially, it's fights another card essentially. So essentially, if you just take out a whole bunch of 1/1s, each one's going to have a chance to do 5 damage to it. Then we have a Journey Discovery, 3-drop sorcery, 2 colorless, 1 green. Choose one, search your library for 2 basic land cards, reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your library, or you may play up to 2 additional lands this turn. And if you pay the Entwine cost, which is 2 colorless, 1 green, do both abilities. Next up, we have a Fossil Find, red or green sorcery. When I return a card at random from your graveyard to your hand, then reorder your graveyard as you choose. So it allows you to set up Threshold, among other things. Next up, we have a Dream Cache, 3-drop sorcery, 2 colorless, 1 blue. Draw 3 cards, choose 2 cards from your hand and put both on either the top or bottom of your library. Next up, we have the Dusk Elemental, 4-drop, 6/6, 2 colorless, 2 white. Flash. You may play this spell anytime you can play an instant. Flash, flying, and fear. When Dusk Elemental comes into play, return 3 creatures you control to their owner's hands. Next up, we have a Fairy Trickery, 3-drop, tribal instant fairy, 1 colorless, 2 blue. Counter target non-fairy spell. If that spell is countered this way, remove it from the game instead of putting it into the owner's graveyard. Next up, we have Coal Stoker. 4-drop, 3/3, 3 colorless, 1 red. When Coast comes into play, if you played it from your hand, add 3 red to your mana pool. Next up, we have the Naya Panorama, land, tap, comes into play, tap to add 1 colorless to your mana pool, or pay 1 colorless, tap, sack the Naya, go search your library for a basic mountain, forest, or plain card and put them into play tapped. Shuffle your library. Next up, we have Air Elemental, 5-drop, flying, 4/4, 3 colorless, 2 blue, just straight flying. Next up, we have Manamorphous, 2-drop, instant, 1 colorless, 1 red or green. Add 2 mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool. Draw a card. Next up, we have the Seal of Podorium, 2-drop, instant, Seal of Podorium, or sack the seal, destroy target artifact or enchantment. 1 colorless, 1 green. Next up, we have Brainstorm. One of the best images, one of the artwork that I love. Brainstorm, 1-drop, instant, 1 blue. Draw 3 cards, then take 2 cards from your hand and put them on top of your library in any order. Next up, we have the Hoofprints of the Stag, 2-drop, tribal instant, tribal enchantment, elemental. When you draw a card, you may put a Hoofprint counter on Hoofprints of the Stag. Pay 2 colorless, 1 white. Remove 4 Hoofprint counter spell counters from the Hoofprint of a Stag. Put a 4/4 white elemental creature token with flying into play. Play this ability only once during your turn. Next up, we have the Bella-Eye Gurnet Hatchling, 4-drop, 6/6, 3 colorless, red or white. First strike enters the battlefield with 4 -1/-1 counters on it. Whenever you play a red spell, remove a 1/1 counter. When you never play a white spell, remove a 1/1 counter. Next up, we have Plasma Elemental. 6-drop, 4/1. Plasma Elemental is unblockable. It's expensive, but it's really hard to hit unblockable for 4 damage. And plus with boosting capabilities, oh boy. Next up, we have the Fire Elemental. 5-drop, 5/4. 3 colorless, 2 red. Next up, we have a Sunblast Angel for 6-drop, 4/5, 4 colorless, 2 white. When Sunblast Angel enters the battlefield, destroy all tapped creatures. Next up, we have Bant Panorama. Comes into play. Tap it to add 1 color, 1 uncolored to your mana pool. 1 colorless to your mana pool. Pay 1 colorless, tap, sack it, go search your library for a basic forest, plains, or island, and shuffle your library. Next up, we have Wave Elemental, 4-drop, 2/3, 2 colorless, 2 blue. Pay 1, sack the Wave Elemental, tap up to 3 target creatures without flying. Next up, we have a Searing Visions, 1-drop, sorcery, 1 blue. Draw 1 card, scry 2. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, put any number of them on the bottom of your library, and the rest on the top of in any order. Next up, we have the Cloud Thresher, 2, 5, 4. That's a 6-drop, 7/7, 2 colorless, 4 green. Flash, reach. This creature can block. This can block creatures with flying. When Cloud Thresher comes into play, it deals 2 damage to each creature with flying and each player. Evoke it for 4, which means you may pay this spell for its evoke cost. If you do, it's sacrificed when it comes into play. So essentially, it's a mass damage 1-turn kill. Then we have Standard Forest. Next up, we have a Noxious Hatchling, 4-drop, 6/6, 3 colorless, 1 black or green. Enters a battlefield with -4, -1 counters on her wither. This deals damage to creatures in the form of negative counters, -1 counters. Whenever you play a black spell, remove a negative -1 counter from him, and if you play a green spell, remove a 1 counter on it. So, a 6/6 doing wither damage. Brutal. Next up, we have Dawn's Reflection, 4-drop. Enchanted Land, 3 colorless, 1 blue. Whenever Enchanted Land is tapped for mana, its controller adds 2 mana of any combination of color mana to his or her mana pool. So essentially, you get to tap 1 land for 3, give or take. No, I'm sorry, you'll get tap 1 for any color combination. So say you have a plains, you can tap it for blue-green. We have Lightning Elemental, 4-drop, 4/1. Lightning Elemental is unaffected by Summoning Sickness. It's a 3 colorless, 1 red. Next up is the Child of Gesa. 6-drop, 7/7. 3 colorless, 3 green. Trample. During your upkeep, pay 2 green or sacrifice the child. Pay 1 colorless, 1 green, regenerate the Child of Gesa. Next up, we have this Sylvan Scrying. 2-drop, sorcery, 1 colorless, 1 green. Search your library for a land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Next up, we have Living Hive. 8-drop, 6/6, 6 colorless, 2 green. Trample. When Living Hive deals combat damage to a player, put that many 1/1 green instant creature tokens into play. Next up, Standard Mountain. We have a Tranquility, 3-drop, sorcery, 2 colorless, 1 green, destroy all enchantments. Standard Mountain. Another Searing Visions. And then we have a Thorn Elemental, 7th edition. 7-drop, 7/7. You may have Thorn Elemental deal its combat damage to defending player as though it weren't blocked. Some of the old school cards I got laying around here. Next up we have a Standard Swamp. Next up we have a Thornwood Falls. Thornwood Falls enters the battlefield tapped. When Thorn Falls enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. Add green or blue to your mana pool. Next up we have a Windscarred Crag. Comes into play tapped. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. Add red or white to your mana pool. We have another Thornwood Falls. Standard Island. Standard Mountain. Standard Forest. Then we have the Time Elemental. 3-drop, 0/2. 2 colorless, 1 blue. If Time Elemental attacks or blocks, it deals 5 damage to you and is buried at the end of combat. Pay 2 colorless, 2 blue. Return target permanent with no enchantments on it to the owner's hand. So it's a chop blocker. Standard Forest. Then we have Purity. 6-drop, 6/6. 3 colorless, 3 white. Flying. If a spell or ability would deal damage to you, prevent that damage, you gain life equal to the damage prevented this way. When Purity is put into the graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into the owner's library. Another Standard Forest. Next up is a Sylvos Rogue Elemental. 6-drop, 8/5 Elemental Legend. 3 colorless, 3 green. Trample. Pay 1 green. Regenerate Sylvos, the Rogue Elemental. Next up, we have a Waterspout Elemental. 5-drop, 3/4, 3 colorless, 2 blue. 3/4 kicker. 1. You may pay an additional blue if you play this spell. Flying. When Waterspout Elemental comes into play, if you pay the kicker cost, return all other creatures to the owner's hand and you skip your next turn. Another Dawn Reflection. Standard Island. Liege of the Tangle. 6, 7, 8-drop, 8/8 Elemental. 6 colorless, 2 green, trample. Whenever Liege of the Tangle deals combat damage to a player, you may choose any number of target lands you control and put an awakening counter on each of them. Each of those lands is a 8/8 green elemental creature for as long as it has an awakening counter on it. That still lands. You just grained an army. Next up, we have Phyrexian Rebirth. 4, 5, 6-drop. Sorcery. 4 colorless, 2 white. Destroy all creatures, then put an XX colorless horror artifact creature token on the battlefield where X is the number of creatures destroyed this way. Next up, we have another Thorn Elemental from a different set. We have a Root Elemental. 6 drop, 6/5, 4 colorless, 2 green. Morph 7. You may play this card face down as a 2/2 creature for 3 colorless. When Rue Elemental is turned face up, you may put a creature card from your hand into play. We have a Simic Growth Chamber. Comes into play tapped. When Simic Growth Chamber comes into play, return a land you control to its owner's hand. Add green-blue to your mana pool. Next up, we have the Lightning Coils, 3-drop artifact. Whenever a non-token creature you control is put into a graveyard from play, put a charge counter on Lightning Coils. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Lightning Coils has 5 or more charge counters on it, remove all of them from it and put that many 3/1 red elemental creature tokens with haste into play. Remove them from the game at the end of turn. Standard Forest. Then we have Guile. 6 drop, 6/6, 3 colorless, 3 blue. Guile can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. If a spell or ability controlled would counter a spell, instead remove that spell from the game, and you may play this card without paying its mana cost. Guile is put into the graveyard from anywhere. Shuffle it into your owner's library. Next up, we have a Tornado Elemental, 7 drop, 6/6, 5 colorless, 2 green. When Tornado Elemental comes into play, it deals 6 damage to each creature with flying. You may have Tornado Elemental deal its combat damage to defending player as though it weren't blocked. Standard Island. Next up, we have the Bogarden Ranger, 6 drop, 3/4 elemental, 5 colorless, 1 red. Flash: when Bogar Ranger comes into play, target creature gets +4/+0 until end of turn. Next up, we have the Guardian of the Vitu-Ghazi. 8 drop, 4/7, 6 colorless, 1 green, 1 white. Convoke. Each creature you tap while playing this spell makes the cost 1 colorless less, or buy 1 mana of the color chosen. Vigilant. Next up, we have the Izzet Boilworks. Comes into play tap. When it comes into play, return a land you control its owner hand. Add a blue-red to your mana pool. We have another Dream Catch. Then we have a Shrewd Hatchling, 4 drop, 6/6, 3 colorless, blue or red. Shrewd Hatchling comes into play with 4 -1/-1 counters on it. Play a red or blue. Target creature can't block search Hadley this turn. Whenever you play a blue spell, remove a 1/1 counter from it. Whenever you play a red spell, remove a 1/1 counter from it. Next, we have Boomerang, 2 drop, instant, 2 blue. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. Next up, we have a Spitmare, 4 drop, 2 colorless, 2 red or 2 white, or a combination of. 3/3. When Spitmare is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to target creature or player. Standard Mountain. We have Selesnya Sanctuary. Comes into play tap. When Selesnya Sanctuary enters the battlefield, return a land you control. Add a green or a green-white to your mana pool. Another Dream Catch. Island. Then we have Harmonize, 4 drop, 2 colorless, 2 green, draw 3 cards. Standard Forest. We have a Morsel Hoarder, 6 drop, 6/4, 4 colorless, and a combination of red, green, or 2 red. Comes into play with 2 -1/-1 counters on it. Remove a 1 counter from, or add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Next up, Standard Island, Standard Mountain. Then we have a Talon Red, 6 drop, flying, 0/5, 4 colorless, 1 blue. Pay blue or red. Talon gets +1 -0, +1/-1 until end of turn. So you can make it a 5/1 or a 5/0. Then we have a Phosphorescent Feast. 5 drop, sorcery, chroma, 2 colorless, 3 green. Reveal any number of cards in your hand. You gain 2 life for each green mana symbol in those cards' mana costs. Next up, we have the Mog Hollows. Land, tap, add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. Add a mountain or forest to your mana pool. Does not untap during its next untap phase. Next up, we have Kindle the Carnage, 3-drop sorcery, 1 colorless, 2 red. Discard a card at random. If you do, Kindle the Carnage deals damage equal to that card's converted mana cost to each creature. You may repeat this process any number of times. Fun for board white. Then we have a Sizzle, 3-drop sorcery, 2 colorless, 1 red. Sizzle deals 3 damage to each opponent.